So now you should have something like this, your object cutting out the background and leaving whatever you want to see remaining. So you can remember that since this is right now a layer mask, you can still edit it a little more if you want to. But at some point when you're really done with your layer mask and you are done cutting your image background away, you'll want to bring it back into Illustrator. If you want to create a vector artwork of it, you can do that by using tracing tools in Illustrator. So I'm going to show you a number of different possibilities here, starting with this guy as he is right now. What can happen here is this background can be cut out permanently, which is probably a good idea if I want to bring it into Illustrator and use tracing tools. So making sure that it's saved. Yes, it's the right one that I'm saving, making sure I'm saving this over the Photoshop version of the file that I want, Ganesha Work, PSD. It is now saved and replaced and all those good things. It's a PSD file. I am recording, just so you know. As it looks really basic right now, one of the things that we are going to learn in Illustrator is how to turn this into vector-based artwork. However, I think I would like to do a couple things to it. You might or may not need to do this to your work. I'm going to run a sharpen filter on it. I'm going to go filter, sharpen, and I'm going to choose this important tool, unsharp mask. I'm sure I've talked about it before, but if not, if you don't remember, here it is, unsharp mask. I need to make sure I'm actually clicking on the image side of my file. So here it is, I clicked on the image side of my file, and I'm going to go to filter, sharpen, unsharp mask. So what the idea here is that you're setting up 3 different parameters: the amount of sharpening, the radius, how much or many pixels of sharpening, and the color threshold of sharpening. So take a look here. I'm going to push threshold all the way up and start moving radius up, and if I click on and off of preview, really nothing is happening because the amount of sharpening is only 1%. If I start eking this up a little more, it's not keeping up with me or something. Preview off, preview on. What's going on here? Clicking, I'm on the right layer. Clicking, I'm on the right side of the layer. Right, looks like I am. Filter, sharpen, unsharp mask. Try it again. Okay, there we go. I don't know, it just wasn't engaging. So I'm going to dial these all back down to 0. The radius, this is just experience speaking. I have found the radius number, you want to keep that kind of low. So I'm going to put in here 2 pixels for the radius. The amount of sharpening for now, I'll put in 50. And you can see it does make it appear sharper, but what it's actually doing is it is sharpening the pixels and making less color. Look at what's happening here. More subtle color, it looks more flat. And as I increase this number, you can see the color is becoming more and more contrasty. So I don't think that looks good, but I just want you to see what happens when you slide these sliders. Okay, so I'm going to put this amount back on, let's say 32%, a third. And then the threshold actually means the color threshold. And this strange setting reacts differently depending on the radius you choose. So I'm not really, I don't know if it's my computer. Here, I'll bring the amount up and I'll lower the threshold. There we go. So low threshold, increasing the threshold. If if you're like me at all, what you're going to find out is sometimes you don't even know what looks best. So you have to go away from it and come back. Now I feel like this is much sharper. I'm happy with that. It's 2.6. Seems to me that usually my highest radius, I'll set the pixel radius is 3, so that seems to make sense. You can also adjust that with the down arrows and the up arrows when you're in that field. Give it a couple seconds, make sure it's updating. All right, now it's starting to look a little harsh. I'll bring it down again. All right, and again, the amount. You can click in this field and increase the amount of sharpening. Scary bad, somewhere in the middle, more than that. Right, so at this point, largely, it's a matter of taste. You could even sharpen it and go back and try to retouch out these highlights. I'm just not going to do that for this particular one here, so I'm happy with that. If I click on and off the preview checkbox, it's subtle, but it's a difference. The whites in the eyes are sharper. See the difference? Look at the eyes. Before, after. All right, so I'll leave it like that and click OK. So that's the unsharp mask, amount, radius, and threshold. Now I want this image to be prepared and ready to go into Illustrator and become a traced image. To do that, I'm going to do File, and I'm going to save it as a JPEG file. So I'll go to JPEG, which will flatten the image for this exported version, and it's called Ganeshwork_JPEG, and that's where I'm saving it to my desktop. And you can see that this has become a flattened version of the artwork because this, in fact, since I chose Save As, is flattened right now. All right, so that was the JPEG preview, and I can tab over to Illustrator where I'm going to zoom out. Now, the next thing you're going to learn is how to do a tracing, turning a Photoshop into a Photoshop file or a pixel-based bitmap image into a drawn artwork. This is not tracing by hand. It's tracing using Illustrator tracing settings. So I'm going to go File, Place. You do have to place your file. You can't just paste it. It has to be placed. So I'll place it. Right, so here's my JPEG. What am I doing here? Okay. And it opened up in preview. Not happy with myself right now. Make sure I know where it is. Save as. Thought I saved it on the desktop as a JPEG. Yes, Ganeshwork desktop. Save, replace. Toggle back over to Illustrator. File, place. Desktop. There we go. Place. Guess my brain is still a little on vacation. And I'm going to click and drag. And when I do this, place this artwork. While it's selected, you're going to notice something kind of cool in the control palette. And that cool thing is these settings here, image trace. Does anybody need help placing their file? Everyone's got their file placed? Awesome. Now, you can take a look on screen, please. If you have your file placed, you should be able to look up now. So I'm going to go here to this pop-down menu where it says Image Trace, and you'll notice there are several presets that may or may not do what you like. If I chose one of these presets, such as black and white logo, I could have that. However, undo, Command Z. That's not quite what I want to do. instead of using a preset, I want to use the panel that will help me to adjust this, and that is the Image Trace panel. Under Window, go to Image Trace. Here is the Image Trace panel. Here's where you can start setting some settings. I will tell you though, it's probably a good idea to not turn this preview checkbox on right away because it takes a long time to trace each time. So I'm going to go to grayscale and then I'm going to turn it on, preview. And that's what it looks like in grayscale, which is pretty awesome. So these are little tiny shapes, small shapes that have been generated, many of them in Illustrator. I'm going to click off the preview. I'm going to lower the number of grays by sliding the slider. Hopefully you're watching. And this is now 20 instead of 50. And click on preview. And now it's retooling it, less colors. So you can see it's more banded, more stylized. Okay, I'll click off preview. I'll go to color. I'll check how many colors, 30? No, I want, let's say, a total of 15 colors. And preview. Give it a moment. Awesome, okay. Right, I'm almost there. I'm pretty happy with it. I could change a few colors and be really happy. So I'm going to click away, click, reduce the number of colors a little bit more. I'm going to reduce it to 10 and click preview back on. Liked it better before. Click off preview. Maybe it needs more colors. I'll give it 17. Preview. All right, so now you get the idea. Once you have the number of colors that you like and or the settings that you like, you don't have to do it in color. You could do part of it in color, part of it in black and white by tracing it a number of times. But I'm going to put it back to grayscale. And I'm going to give it 20 colors in preview. And I really like that. So I'm going to stick with that one. And when you're happy with it, essentially you can close this menu. And what you have now is no longer a photo. The photo still exists. That JPEG is still on your hard drive. But what you have now is this complex drawing. Somewhat characteristic of Illustrator tracings. This traced Ganesh head has what I think is the telltale signs of being traced in Illustrator. And to me, what that is these awful little gaps that it makes. I don't really like those. I tend to use this tool and then, when needed, use this tool and then customize some of the things about how it's put the colors on. Now, I know it's not an Illustrator class, so I'm not going to go too deeply into this, but I do want to show you the next steps if you did want to try this. And then I'm going to bring this back into Photoshop. So I'm going to click on my artwork here, making sure it's selected. It is. And you can see there's a big bounding box around it. And then I'm going to come over here where it says Object, and I'm going to choose Expand. Object Expand. This is now going to take all of this sort of uber group shapes and make them editable. I'll click OK. Now it has changed over here in the Layers panel to being still a group, but not as complex a group. And you can see all the little vector elements are highlighted when I click on this layer. So if I go away over to the Direct Selection tool and I click, this background also seems to be part of a vector. Okay, so please look. I'm going to make sure the whole thing is selected again. Regular selection tool, black arrow, please watch. And I'm going to do one more thing here. I'm going to go ungroup. Now there's only one group. There's not 3 groups or 2 groups. And I can use the direct selection tool to click on the outside and delete that. There's a white shape. It's gone now. There was a white shape. Now it's back. Command Z. and clicked on it. Now it's gone. Okay, you still with me? I don't feel like I'm going fast. I feel like I'm going at a good speed. If you're actually looking when I ask you, it will help you. Now I can use the direct selection tool and click on one piece of this, such as this gray element in the trunk that I don't think looks nice with these weird little cracks on it. So I've selected that, and now if you're looking on screen, you'll see I'm going to take the fill color and I'm going to drag it and drop it on the stroke color. It put on the stroke. The stroke is 1 point. It actually doesn't even need to be that wide. If I made it 0.5, which is a half a stroke, and click away, it will still seal up that little white edge. Okay, looks better. So if I click, we'll also warn you to be careful with ones on the edges. So if I want that little white seam, see there's a white seam there? Can you see that? I can see it. So I select this, I come over, I take this fill color, I drop it on stroke, come over here to the size of the stroke, 0.5. And I would do that everywhere I felt it was needed, which, could be somewhat time consuming. You can also, you don't need to do this today, but just so you know, you can also take these shapes, such as this odd curved shape, and you can change it. A good tool to do that with could be the blob brush in Illustrator, or you could use the pen tool, but there's one in here called the blob brush. Okay, it is a shape builder, live paint bucket. No, there's one in here called the blob brush. Is it under brush? Yes, thank you. Blob brush. The blob brush is a blob. It's a circle. I'm making it smaller, left arrow. I'm using the right color on this. I might want this to be more of a shape like that, curving it. All right, so I could adjust the shape by painting on it. So that's one way I can edit this vector without having to get too illustratory. I can select this large shape. I can go to the pencil tool and get the one called the smooth tool and run this smooth tool around the contour of this curve to make it a little less bumpy. Now I got a pocket here, right? One of those weird little white pockets. And I would fix that by clicking on this new big shape, finding an anchor point, just like any other pen tool here. These are shapes made by an automated pen path, and that is now vector. Spacebar should give me the hand tool, and any of these other highlights I might want to get rid of. I can do that now if I feel like it just doesn't look right, such as I just think that's a weird looking highlight. I'll press I for eyedropper, and then I'll get this light gray that's right next to it, and back to the regular selection tool and click away. So that can be done, okay? And that is turning a bitmap into a vector. Right? That whole idea of turning a bitmap into a vector, again here I'll put an outline on this one, and I'll thin it out a 0.5.
How fine can you go on a stroke?
Very thin. I don't know. Let's see. You see, like that wasn't thin enough here, so that's not great. And it's at 0.5, so I'll lower it, and now it's nothing. So that's not what I want. And I'll select it again, and I'll do 0.1. Did something. Just enough. Okay? All right. That being said, I'm going to give you a minute to tinker with your work. However, there's something completely else I need to show you. It's related to this. It is something that you want to probably practice, but I'll tell you what it is in a moment. So go ahead and do whatever you want to do for the next minute or so, next few minutes, and then be ready to learn another new thing. You guys okay? Is this helpful? Do you like it? Okay.